Hello everyone, and welcome to another video. So, you hate Windows 10 and you're thinking of switching to Linux, but you are visually impaired like me. What options have you got? Well, today in this video I'm going to show you how to use Orca to do all the tasks that you know you could do on Windows, however in a more efficient way because it's on Linux. So, before we go ahead and get started, I'm going to answer a few questions along the way, and the first question is, what distro do I use? So you've got interest in Linux and you want to try some distros. So Ubuntu is a good one if you want to get started with accessibility and stuff. It's got Orca pre-configured right out of the box. You just press Control, Windows key and S when you boot the live image. You've got Ubuntu Mate, which is better than Ubuntu because it uses the Mate desktop, and Mate is a fork of GNOME too. You've got Fedora, but personally I recommend you stay away from Fedora. It's very unstable, and when I installed Fedora on my system and logged in, Orca just wouldn't work. And the reason is because Fedora doesn't install Speech Dispatcher. And you've also got Arch Linux, which is for advanced users as well, and that also has some accessibility options in there too. But the best Linux distro by far when it comes to innovative usability and accessibility is Linux Mint. Linux Mint with the Mate desktop, and that's exactly what I'm using on my computer. And you could use a Linux distro that was designed for the accessibility, but distros like Linux and Accessible Coconut, particularly Linux, no longer get updates, and Accessible Coconut isn't even on Distro Watch, so you might as well stay away from that distro because it too could become obsolete any moment. So now you're wondering now, how do I get Linux on my computer then? Well, I've done a video on that, so you might want to check that out. So without further ado, I'm going to bring my magic keyboard over to me laptop, the famous Lenovo IdeaPad 320. I got to go off camera, unfortunately, and let's start playing about with Linux and learning Linux. So here I have Linux Mint installed on my Lenovo IdeaPad 320, and it's currently powered off because I want to show you what it's like after you've installed. And I have Orca configured to talk during the login screen, so you'll know exactly what's going on. So I'm going to go ahead and boot it up right now. And I wait for it to boot. So after you've installed any Linux distribution, you may want to toggle on the screen reader just in case you're on the login screen, and possibly after you've logged in as well. So I'm just waiting for it to boot up. Now I've heavily customized my Linux Mint, so whatever you'd see is not going to be the same as what you would see, as what I have, should I say. So we just wait for it to boot. Now Linux is more kindly to your hardware than Windows is. Old computers just aren't suitable for fast boot. But the problem is Microsoft don't know that. In my opinion, Microsoft doesn't really care about Windows anymore. They just care about making money out of its sort of services, in my opinion.
Login screen frame. Enter password for token.
Okay, here we are. We're in the login screen. So all you've got to do is just enter your password. Yeah, so about Windows, it does get updates, but it's just not, in my opinion, it's just not doing as well as I thought it would. So anyway, we're on the login screen, so I'm going to go ahead and type my password in right now.
Hold it.
Now the thing with Orca is it won't read your password, so don't worry.
Hold it.
Ah,
Hold it. Hold it.
and then we wait to log in.
Screen reader on.
Okay, you just heard the login sound, and our screen reader is on and ready for us. So, depending on your distro, you might get a welcome screen. This is completely normal, so don't worry if it's the first time you're logging into your newly installed system, you'll get the welcome screen pop up, and that'll get you started. But it does depend on your distro. I mean, generic distros like Accessible Coconut, they don't have a welcome screen, so they're not Linux newbie friendly, in my opinion, unlike the distro I'm using. The Accessible Coconut distro doesn't have an active community, so that's why I recommend you stick to a distro that actually has a community. Linux Mint, for instance. So, now that I've logged, you're probably asking now that I've logged in, what do I do? How do I get to my stuff and stuff? How do I get to my desktop? It depends on your distro. And here I am using Linux Mint, Mate edition. Yes, it's pronounced Mate, but spelled M-A-T-E, because it's named after a Spanish drink. Or is it Mexican? I'm not sure. Let's get started. So I'm going to go over each distro that I know of that actually has the desktop shortcut. So here in Linux Mint, to get to the desktop, you simply press Control, Alt, and Tab. Any other distro based on the Mate desktop that uses the Mate desktop is Control, Option, and Escape. I mean Control, Alt, and Escape. When I say Option, I'm not on a Mac. Although I'm using my Mac keyboard here to keep the Mac awake while I'm recording this. So, yeah. So let's go to our desktop by pressing our key combination.
Desktop.
And let me just close out Dropbox for a minute.
Jordan. Drop T-O-P. Full stop. Full stop. 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 Full stop. Full stop. Full stop. 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 Full stop. Dropbox isn't responding. Jordan at lip.
What is wrong with Dropbox?
D-R-P-O-X. Drop F-F-F. Dropbox isn't running. Jordan at.
Okay, Dropbox doesn't appear to be running, which is a good thing. Okay, so now that let me get out of here.
Desktop.
Because Dropbox might start up again eventually. Here we are on our desktop. So, on the desktop, depending on your distro, you might find your user home directory. I wish Windows and Mac did this because it's easy to get to your home directory. But then again, we don't need to worry on a Mac because we can easily get to our home directory by pressing Command Shift and H. And there you are, you're in your home area. While on Linux, here it is, the first item on the list. Well, depending if you don't have any screenshots on the desktop.
Computer app.
Let me
Jordan's home icon.
there it is, there's my home directory. And if I press enter on it,
Jordan frame.
there I am.
Icon view 0 items. Desktop folder. Documents folder.
I'm in my home area, and I've got my desktop, documents, downloads, pictures, everything you'd expect to see in a well-rounded operating system, an operating system that knows how to be an operating system. So now that I've showed you that, you're probably asking now, where is my taskbar? The answer to that is you don't get a taskbar. What you get instead is sort of like a taskbar, but it's actually part of the system tray on the Mate desktop. And if you're following along with this, I recommend you use the Mate desktop because if you're using GNOME, then a lot of the stuff in this tutorial is not going to apply to you. And GNOME itself is not accessible, so yeah. So let's take a look at how we get to our system panel then. Pretty much the same keystroke for getting to the desktop is the exact same. It's Control Alt and Tab.
Desktop. Bottom panel. Bottom panel frame. Terminal, use the command line push button.
And then you've got applications here that you've got applications that you pin to your panel. It's called the panel, really. That's how it refers to in Linux. So now, in order to navigate the panel, it's you can do two things. You can do a tab, or you can use the right arrow to navigate things. So depending on your distro, you may have two panels. You'll have a top panel and a bottom panel. But on Linux Mint, you only get the bottom panel because it lays everything out where you'd want it to be. And I've seen in Fedora, it's a pretty messy. Fedora's pretty messed up as it is already. So good luck trying to find where you want to go on Fedora. I am never going anywhere near that distro unless it improves its accessibility. But the way Fedora is going, no. I won't recommend it to anyone who is visually impaired like me. So, assuming you're on your bottom panel, let's just tab till we get to our items, see what we've got.
Window list panel. Jordan toggle button not pressed.
And here you've got open apps, and you can close those if you right click them.
Fry 14 May, 9:41 panel.
And here's,
toggle button not pressed.
Here's our
Click to new month calendar.
Here you can see the calendar, which has the date on it. The clock's also on there as well if you want to know the time, but it's pretty easy to get the time in Orca. All you got to do is press Insert and T.
Show desktop button, toggle button not pressed.
So
click here to hide all windows and show the desktop.
So you can show the desktop if you wish to do so.
Bottom panel. File browser, browse the file system with the file manager push button.
So you've got the file manager here.
Terminal, use the command.
There's the terminal.
Window list panel.
Our window list.
Diverse panel icon. Panel.
And here we have our notification panel. So
Bluetooth is disabled.
Use 6 on the number keypad, the numeric keypad. You just press 6 on there to navigate that.
Not pressed. Laptop battery is fully charged.
So here you've got your battery indicator.
Not press up. System reports require your attention.
System reports.
Not welcome to the update manager.
Introducing you to Linux Mint's fabulous update manager. I love Linux updates because they're non-intrusive. I mean, all Windows wants to do is ruin your computing experience. The same is true for macOS in a sense too, but Linux doesn't care. It's your computer. You can do what you want with it. Right, so
not Wi-Fi network connection, BTW.
And here's where you can find Wi-Fi if you want to go ahead and connect to an internet connection. If you've just installed and you want to go ahead and install an internet connection.
Not output, 100%.
And there's our volume, and that's how you navigate that's how to navigate. So pretty cool. Right, so what's next then? Well, now that I've showed you how to navigate your actual interface, your main part of the operating system, like your taskbar, like icons and stuff, we're going to look at how to navigate to programs. So to get to your programs, let's just escape out of that. Let's go back to the desktop.
Desktop, Jordan's home icon.
And to get to the programs, you press Alt and F1 to get to the main menu.
Menu.
And your programs are in categories, so all you've got to do is just press the arrow key to go to browse categories. So here you've got
shutdown, accessories menu, Chrome apps menu, education menu, graphics menu, internet menu, office menu, other menu, programming menu, sound and video menu, system tools menu, places menu.
So to expand any of these, you just simply press the right arrow key.
System tools menu, Android file transfer, MTP, discover, disk usage analyzer, Dolphin, file browser, firmware, console, cases guard, K-wallet manager, log file viewer, Muon package manager, power statistics, system monitor, terminal, time shift, Android file transfer, MTP, system tools menu.
There's loads of applications that come pre-installed with Linux, but you can take a look at those yourself. We're not going to go through all those. So what if you want to open an application? Then it's simpler. You just simply press enter on it. So let's open an app. Let's go. Let's say we want to open. Let's say we want to open Firefox, for instance, because that'll lead us on to the next section, and that's how to browse the web with Linux.
Chrome button, Office, Internet menu.
And
Aggregator, Chromium web browser, contact, print theme editor, contact theme editor, Dropbox, Firefox web browser.
And here's Firefox, so we just simply open.
Desktop, Jordan's home icon.
And then once our browser is open, that's where we go into the next section, and that is how to browse the internet.
Start page, Linux Mint, Mozilla Firefox frame, Linux Mint link. Finish loading start page, Linux Mint. Page has one heading, one form, one visited link, 50 unvisited links. Linux Mint. Finish loading new tab, link. Okay, you just heard quite a lot of information there.
So let's move on to the next section, and we'll talk about what you've just heard there, what you've just heard Orca say. So, Orca, unlike NVDA, actually announces the page summary just before it loads the page. Tells you how many links it's got, tells you how many headings it's got. In a sense, it's like JAWS, and the commands for navigating the web on Linux are very similar to those in JAWS, and indeed NVDA. But however, unlike NVDA, Orca doesn't freeze because it's built into Linux. I've had NVDA freeze on me so many times, it's unbelievable, especially when I'm browsing the web on this particular computer. And I can't run JAWS on this computer anyway because it's too expensive and I haven't got enough memory. By that, I don't have enough RAM. You need 8 gigs of RAM to run JAWS efficiently. So, Orca beat NVDA to it. Orca, like NVDA, is programmed in Python. So, and both open source as well. Right, so here we are on the start page. So, to navigate by headings, if you're coming from Windows, you just press H.
Latest news from the Linux Mint log heading level 1. Wrapping to top. Latest news from the Linux Mint log heading level 1.
And what I love about this, when you're navigating headings, and there are no more headings to navigate to, it will automatically wrap the focus to the top of the page again, where the first heading was. This is something you'll recognize if you are a long-time JAWS user, and I have had a lot of experience with JAWS. I've been using JAWS since 2016, when I used it on a Windows 7 PC. And I found JAWS works better on Windows 7 than it did in Windows 10, so yeah. So this is really handy if you're coming from a Windows 7 system. And the commands. So if I navigate a list of links, like you would in say pressing K.
Monthly news. 8. Monthly news. March 2021 visited link.
And the good thing is, just like all the other screen readers I mentioned, it tells you if you've visited that link before. You can navigate unvisited links.
Monthly news. February 2021 link.
By pressing U. You can navigate visited links by pressing V.
Wrapping to top. Monthly news. March 2021 visited link.
So again, unlike macOS and unlike Windows, especially when it comes to built-in screen readers, Narrator is indeed not newbie friendly. You simply press Enter.
Loading. Please wait. The Linux Mint log image link heading level 1. Finish loading monthly news. March 2021. The Linux Mint log.
And it's loaded. And what I especially love about Orca is whenever the page load progress bar appears in any browser, it doesn't have to be Firefox, it will let you know that the page is actually loading. And this is something I wish NVDA and JAWS actually did. Of course, they do it only in Microsoft Edge, but they should do this in other browsers. Well, that's because Microsoft designed it themselves. NVDA, NV Access and Freedom Scientific can learn from GNOME Orca. If they can put features from Orca into NVDA, or if GNOME can put features from NVDA into Orca, then the two screen readers are going to be pretty good free options, especially for regardless of what platform you're using. I mean, NVDA is not bad, but it just needs to improve. It's a good screen reader if you're in the working environment, so no big deal. But if you're doing a lot of web browsing, it's generally there's too many bugs to actually do reliable web browsing with NVDA, in my opinion. But I do like NVDA, especially when I want to use Windows, and I still think NVDA to this day is the best Windows screen reader there is. So now that you're wondering, what other commands are similar to those in JAWS and NVDA? Well, again, get into edit boxes. Again, there are no edit boxes on the page, so I can't do that. So we're going to go ahead and go to a page where there is an edit box. For example, Bing. Bing has an edit box. So again, if you want to change the web page you're on, because you're using a Windows keyboard on Linux, you don't have to worry because it's exactly the same keyboard shortcuts you're used to on Windows. So pressing Alt and D is going to be the same as it was on Windows, so you'll feel right at home.
Search with DuckDuckGo or enter address editable.
So we're going to go type in Bing.
Search with DuckDuckGo or enter address editable combo box https://www.bing.com. Search using voice push button. Finished loading Bing. Page has 3 landmarks, 5 headings, 1 form, 63 unvisited.
Yeah, to interrupt Orca at any time, just press Control. And unlike VoiceOver, it will actually shut up. But sorry about that. I don't mean to be offensive, but you know what I mean. It'll actually be quiet, unlike VoiceOver, which, regardless of whether you press Control, VoiceOver will carry on talking. And I class that as a permanent bug. I don't think there's any way of fixing that. It's supposed to mute speech, but it doesn't. So now that we're actually on Bing,
wrapping to top. Enter your search term entry.
If I press E, it brings us straight to the edit box, which it calls entries. Now, if you're used to using NVDA or JAWS, then you'll remember forms mode in JAWS and browse mode in NVDA or focus mode. Well, it's pretty much the same terminology, but instead, to get into browse mode with Orca, you press the Orca modifier key and A to get into focus mode. So if I press this,
focus mode.
I'm in focus mode, and I can actually type in a search term. So let's just type in something random. I don't know.
MONKEY loading. Please wait. Monkey Bing document web. Finished loading Monkey Bing. Page has 10 landmarks, 15 headings, 1 form, 139 unvisited links. Dialog. Accept push button. Accept. Push button. More options. Link. Banner. Image. Heading left. Go to Bing homepage link.
Let me just quieten that down. Right, so we are still in
search. Enter your search.
It's put us back in browse mode. So it's supposed auto focus and auto browse mode. If you're in whenever you're in something like auto browse mode or auto focus mode, you don't have to worry. But if you're trying to fill in a form, it's important that you remember that the shortcut key to get into browse mode this time is insert and A. You can change the behavior of the Orca modifier key in the Orca screen reader preferences, which we're going to take a look at the end of the video. Or you'll probably remember watching the installation video when, in this case, I showed you how to get into preferences. So now that we've covered basic web browsing, there's a few more things I want to cover before we move on to the next section. And that is more navigation.
Focus browse mode.
So
menu. Banner.
You're probably asking now, does every navigation command work?
X.
You can navigate checkboxes.
Browse mode.
But on this particular
No more tick boxes.
on this particular website, there are no checkboxes.
Clear text push button.
You can navigate buttons by pressing B. I don't know what N does. Let me just.
Screen reader N. N.
Well, N doesn't do anything, so you'll have to use the heading navigation command if you want to carry on reading, especially with certain pages, because the majority of the time they will contain only text. When you navigate text.
Escape. Exiting learn mode.
So, all your basic navigation commands will work. So you've nothing to lose there if you switch to Linux and you are an avid web browser like me and you love browsing the web. I mean, a web browser isn't the way to describe it. Avid surfer, should I say? A web browser is the program that activates it. This next feature is pretty quick one, so it's not going to be tough, and that's how to pass keystrokes through to the application, especially if you have key conflicts, as Jaws used to refer to one of us. So, to pass a key to an active application, press Insert and Backspace.
Bypass mode enabled.
And I've just pressed O, and Orca didn't speak the letter O because it passed it through to Firefox. And now that we've done actually navigating the internet, we just close by pressing F4. And yes, Alt and F4 does work in Linux.
Jordan frame. Icon view 0 items.
Now we're going to cover how to write an email in Linux. So, Linux comes with a wide variety of software, especially when it comes to emailing. So, the main email client in most Linux distributions is Thunderbird. And before you switch to Linux, you can get used to Thunderbird right now because it's available on the Mac and on Linux. Windows. Slip of the tongue again. So I haven't got Thunderbird set up on here, so this will be a perfect opportunity to show you how to set it up, especially if you've never used Thunderbird before. So even if you're not using Linux, you can follow along, because you will need to use Thunderbird if you want to use emails on Linux. So I'm going to go ahead and find Thunderbird.
Graphic internet.
I go to internet.
Chrome contact drop of Firefox Google Chrome text KDE connect Kmail conk Kobe KDF Nitrosh PIM Cupid zip edit Thunderbird mail.
And here we have Thunderbird, so we just simply press enter on it. If you're using Trisquel, you'll have to use iStuff, but the commands are very the same. But however, Thunderbird is better than iStuff, so if you're using Trisquel, I'm afraid you have to look, because some of the commands may not work. Some of the features. Alright, so let's press enter.
Jordan frame. Icon view 0 items.
So we're just going to wait for Thunderbird to actually... We're just going to wait for Thunderbird to actually load. And if you want to switch between active applications at all times, you'll remember that Alt-Tab works as well, just like it did in Windows.
Set up your existing
Here
email
we
address
go.
frame. Your name. Autocomplete your full name.
So when you first start Thunderbird, you'll be brought to the account setup wizard, and the first thing it asks you for is your name. So I'm going to do that right now. So type your name as you would, and press tab.
Email address. Autocomplete your email address.
And here's your and this is where you type in the email address you'd like to use with Mozilla Thunderbird. So I'm going to use my Gmail.
Quote.
Oops.
At GARLIL full stop COM.
So now the next thing is to do.
Password text.
Enter the password for the account. So I've just typed that in.
Remember password checkbox ticked.
Remember the password. So again, press space to check that or uncheck it.
Cancel push configure manually. Push button.
And you can either configure manually or
Continue push.
continue. In this case, if you're using our stuff, then you'll have to configure it manually anyway, because Trisquel is not a good Linux distribution. It's terribly underdeveloped in my opinion. So I'm going to go ahead and press enter. And the good thing is I'm not using Trisquel, I'm using Mint, which is the opposite of Trisquel. Linux Mint is well developed. Anyway, let's press enter on that. And now we just simply tap to the done button.
Done push button.
And this is where we actually authenticate.
It's 10 o'clock.
Enter credentials for Jordan Livesey@gmail.com.
I've got some reminders for AMD Radeon.
Entry Jordan Livesey@gmail.com.
Okay, so it's filled up our it's filled up our internet email address. It's filled up our email. So enter your credentials on IMAP because it uses IMAP by default. I recommend you use IMAP because you save up a lot of computer storage space if you do that, because your emails are synced with the cloud.
Next push button. Enter your password.
So I just type my password in again.
Sign in push button.
And then click sign in, and then it, as you just probably heard, it automatically brings you back to browse mode. So we're going to go press enter on that.
Redirecting document web. Request for permission. Page has one heading, one form. Allow push button.
So click allow to let Google know you want to use the app with it. If you're setting up a Gmail account. So I'm going to click allow because I want to show you how to write an email. So here we go.
Set up your existing email address frame. Inbox Mozilla Thunderbird frame. Main content. Welcome to Thunderbird. Page has one landmark.
And then we've got some unnecessary stuff from Mozilla.
Table with 138 rows, 8 columns. Final date of up to 20% off spring sale police car light and red Lenovo UK 02 slap.
And the good thing is it brings us straight to our inbox where all our emails are waiting for us. If you were using POP, you'd have to wait for your emails to download before you can actually read them. And to read and to navigate our email, use our emails, the list of emails you've got, you simply press the down arrow key.
Orca list digest. New reply to a comment on Yamaha PSR 140 all the 100 demo songs. Find a game you'll love and red app store. Orca list digest.
Oh, I hate the App Store. The reason why I didn't want an iPhone in the first place is because I don't like iOS. That's why I switched to Android. You're probably wondering now, why have I got a Mac though? It's because Mac OS is a better operating system than iOS. It's one of Apple's strong points. But that's changing the subject. Let's just read these emails.
Today's briefing: India, politics, Adair Thompson, and SpaceX and Red Group. How was your free trial, Jordan? A Red Tapier 03. There's so much to explore at Red Disney Plus 03/D.
So that's how to read emails, and it does tell you if they're unread. Now, how would you reply to some of those emails? Well, if you're just getting started, I recommend you use the all-important right-click key on your keyboard. If your keyboard's got one, if your keyboard doesn't have one, then press Shift and F10. Well, my keyboard does, so I'm going to use the Applications key.
Menu.
And I've got a context menu, so this menu is related to the email that my cursor is on. So I've got
Open message in new tab.
Open the message in a new tab.
Open message in new window.
Open message in new window.
Open message in conversation. Reply to sender only.
And you've got the reply to sender only.
Reply to all.
You've got the reply to all, which is unique. These are what you'd expect in an email client.
Reply to list.
Reply to list.
Forward.
And you've got the forwarding options.
Forward as menu. Edit as new message. Tab menu. Mark menu. Archive. Move to menu. Copy to menu. Delete message. Ignore thread check menu. Ignore sub-thread. Watch thread check. Save as. Print preview. Print. Open message in new tab. Open message.
And then we're back again. And you'll get shortcuts depending on the screen reading you're using. So you can use those shortcut keys in Thunderbird. All the keyboard shortcuts are going to be the same, so you don't have to worry about it. Regardless of whether you're using Linux, it's still going to contain the same shortcut keys. And yeah, so let me just get out of this context menu. I'm back in the email.
Table with 138 rows.
And now the all-important thing you've all been waiting for. How do I send an email? And that's what we're going to do. We're going to send an email. So, to send an email at any time, you simply press Control and N.
No subject. Thunderbird frame. To entry.
And here we are in our to entry. So I'm going to send it to my other email address.
KORDSEY1 quote at jordanliveruk
And the good thing about Thunderbird is it respects your tapping, so you don't get an autofill, which is a good thing. Most email clients need to stop doing that, and especially webmail clients. So I've just typed in the email, so unit 2.
Subject autocomplete. To entry. Subject autocomplete.
Now here's the subject, so it's what the recipient's going to see when you tap the email. Well, it's what you'd expect in an email. So the subject is, let me just put anything.
TEFT test. FEGE. Message of the editable content. Focus mode.
And in the message body, we'll just tap in hello.
AEFO.
Now in Microsoft Outlook, you'll remember that Control and S sends an email. It's different in Thunderbird. You press Control and Enter. And if you're on a Mac, you press Command and Enter. If you're using Thunderbird on your Mac. So I'm going to go ahead and press Control and Enter to send this message.
Send message frame. Are you sure you are ready to send this message? Send push button.
I'm going to go ahead and send it.
Are you Do not show me. Are you sure? Do not show me this dialog box again. Checkbox not ticked.
I recommend you tick that if you don't want to see the dialog box.
Ticked. Cancel. Send push button.
And we'll click send, and we'll get another alert.
0%. Sending message. Test message frame. Cancel push button.
Oh no, it's just sent it.
100%.
Because
Inbox. Mozilla Thunderbird frame.
you get an alert if the message had no subject. So we've just sent a message to my other email address. And if I was to log into that email account, then I would read the message, I'd see it, because I also use Outlook.com as well for my universal credit. I don't even know why I even bother with it. Anyway, that's how to do emails. Now, your contacts and stuff, I recommend you explore Thunderbird and learn how to do all this. Remember, each program has an extensive help system, so don't be afraid to use it at all times. So now that I've touched on using Mozilla Thunderbird and email on Linux, we're going to close out of that. And now
Jordan frame.
we're going to look at writing documents. Now, you'll be used to Microsoft Word on Windows and possibly the Pages application on a Mac.
Show captured. Stop recording.
I'm glad my Mac has been awake during this session. So in Linux you get LibreOffice, and let me tell you this right now, it's a fabulous piece of software. So in order to write a document, let me go into my Office menu.
Graphic into Office contact print theme editor contact theme editing K address book K make or KTF dot LibreOffice May Ocular LibreOffice Writer LibreOffice Math LibreOffice Impress.
So you've got all your basic Office stuff. You've got an Excel alternative, which is called LibreOffice Calc. You've got
LibreOffice Draw,
which is your drawing.
LibreOffice Calc,
that's your Excel.
LibreOffice Base
is a Microsoft Access alternative.
LibreOffice
We've got the Math, which is the Maths thing.
LibreOffice Writer.
And we've got the Word alternative, LibreOffice Writer. And if you're using
LibreOffice Impress,
there's Impress, which is the PowerPoint alternative. So
LibreOffice Writer.
Let's open LibreOffice Writer and write a quick document.
Jordan frame. Icon view 0 items.
So let's wait for that to open. And the good thing about LibreOffice is the majority of the software you're going to be using is free. So you don't have to pay
Tip
for
of the day.
anything. Here we go.
2/222 dialog. Did you know? To print the notes on your slides, go to File, Print, Impress tab, and select Notes under Document type. OK push button.
And it gives you useful tips every time you open the document. And this is really useful if you're just starting out. So I recommend you go ahead and you'll get along. You'll get it. We just press the OK button. I recommend you keep this setting on if you're new to LibreOffice. So yeah.
Untitled 1 LibreOffice Writer frame.
And here we are. Here we are in a blank document. So now that we're actually in a blank document, I'm going to go ahead and write something. And listen very carefully.
D-A-R-S is enter the how to the R-I-T-E right A-A-D-O-C-U-M-E-X document R-L-I-N-N-I-X full stop Linux.
Now, I have purposefully misspelled a word because I'm going to show you how spell check works. And in my opinion, spell check on LibreOffice is easier to use than in Microsoft Word. And to get to that, it's the same keystroke.
Alert question. Continue checking at beginning of document. No push button.
Here's our spell check. So it'll ask you, continue checking at beginning of document. So I'm going to press yes.
Yes push button. Spelling. English UK dialog. Correct push button.
So it's found that we've misspelled a word. So let's tab and see what we've got.
Correct all push button.
So if it's found a suggestion, you get correct. Or if it's found multiple suggestion occurrences, you can correct all occurrences of the word.
Always correct push button.
Always correct. You know, if you wanna be lazy.
Help push button options. Push
We
button.
have our options.
Close push text language. Combo pop paste push button. Not in dictionary panel. Not in dictionary text. This is how to write a document in Linux.
So it says not in dictionary Linux. We didn't spell Linux properly.
Ignore once push button.
We have our ignore options.
Ignore all push button. After dictionary push button.
We've got the option to add it to the dictionary should you want to.
Lining. Tree level 1.
And here we have our suggestions. In this case, we've only got one.
Correct push button. Correct all push button. Correct. Alert information. The spell check is complete. OK push button. Spelling. English.
And that's our spell check complete. So
type blank. This is how to write a document in lining.
I'm going to delete that.
This for G-N-I-N-I-L.
If you clicked correct and it put the wrong word in, so I'm going to go ahead and replace it with the correct spelling of Linux because Linux itself is not actually in the dictionary. So I'm going to go ahead and, well, it is, but yeah, we spelt it wrong, and it obviously thought something else.
L-I-N-U-X.
And here we have Linux. So
this is how to write a document in Linux. This is how to Linux. This is how to write a document in Linux. Blank. This is blank.
And the reading commands in Orca, they're exactly the same as you've come to expect in screen readers. You can select text in documents pretty easily. You can do LibreOffice supports all the functions that you'd expect in an Office word processor. I mean, you can read the entire documentation and learn how to use it inside out. Again, this is another operating system. This is another piece of software that's multi-platform. So you've nothing to lose there. Now I'm going to show you how to save the document. So let's say we want to save this file. Now, if you're coming from the old version of Microsoft Office, this is the classic menu bar look.
File menu.
And in my opinion, this is a lot better than the ribbons they give you in Office.
Open remote, recent document close, wizards menu, templates, save control, save as, shift plus control plus S dot.
And there's our save as option, and it's given us a handy shortcut key, shift control and S. So let's go ahead and
save file chooser, name, text, untitled one selected.
Let's just call it Linux.
RNUX.
But don't save yet. What if, say, let's say you're doing a piece of a project and you want a sighted colleague who's not using Linux to see it. I recommend you save it as a Microsoft Word file because a computer by default can't open an OpenOffice Word document. They'll have to install the software themselves. But the majority of businesses will have Office on their computers, so it's very important that you save it in a format that can be read by Windows or Mac. So let's go ahead and, if it'll let
Save
me.
push button. Cancel ODF text document dot hot combo box.
Here we go, save as type, and this is a combo box.
ODF text document template dot hot.
We can just simply press the arrow key.
Flat F Unified Word 2007 365 dot docx.
And you want to click that option, Word 2007 365.
Cancel but save push button.
And now we simply tap to save. We've already tapped our file name in. We can also choose which location it saves in, but it saves in the documents folder by default, which is a really good thing, so you don't have to worry about that. I recommend you put it in documents because then you can find it really easily.
Alert question. This document may contain formatting or content that cannot be saved in the currently selected file format, Word 2007 365. Use the default ODF file format to be sure that the document is saved correctly.
Now you might want to ignore, you're best off ignoring that, because like I said, if you use ODF, your teacher or colleagues or whatever else wants to see your document is not going to understand it, and it might come out funny when you go ahead and print it. Windows can't read ODF files properly. Well, you can in Microsoft Word, but it's recommended you save in Microsoft Word format, because then you can format it directly in Word if you have to. So we're going to
use Word 2007 365 format push button.
use Word 2007.
Ask when not saving in ODF or default format checkbox ticked.
Now you want to uncheck that.
Not ticked.
That way it will stop nagging you to do so.
Use ODF format push button. Use Word 2007 365 format push button.
So press enter on that.
Linux.docx, LibreOffice Writer frame.
And our document is saved. And now the final one I want to touch on, and this is what you've all been waiting for basic tasks, is how to navigate the file system on your computer. So let's go and navigate some files. So let's go back to the desktop. Well, we're back on there already. So let me go in my here I am in my home folder.
Downloads folder, Dropbox folder, music folder, drop down document desktop folder, documents folder, documents.
And here we are in our documents.
Linux.docx Microsoft Word document.
And here's our document that we actually saved. So if you're coming from Windows, the majority of the stuff you're going to be used to is exactly the same. So copying and pasting, Control C and Control V. So let's copy it into another folder, just to be sure.
Copy selection to clipboard.
And we're going to go ahead and paste it.
Desktop download Dropbox.
So let's paste it into the Dropbox folder.
Pasted contents from clipboard. Linux.docx Microsoft Word document.
And look at that, you can see your document in that folder. And let's say we want to delete the document. So again, let's delete it by pressing Shift and Delete.
Alert warning. Are you sure you want to permanently delete Linux.docx? If you delete an item, it will be permanently lost. Delete push button.
So press delete, because we don't have to worry about the warning. We've got a copy in our documents folder. We've got the original file.
Dropbox frame. Icon view. 50,000 MIDI files.zip archive.
And if you press F2,
adage.jam.mns.icon.text.
Again, you can rename a file. It's the same. And you can toggle list view by pressing
adage.jam.mns.icon.45
Control. You can toggle views with Control 1, 2, and 3. So I've just put that in list view. I'm going to put that back in icon view.
Icon 50,000.
There we go. We're back in icon view. You can change the views, and you can also do whatever. It's exactly the same. So that covers the basics. It's exactly the same as what you get. except it's easy to create a new folder. To create a new folder, so let's stay in the current folder, for instance. Let's press, to do so you press Control Shift N.
Untitled folder.
And we're in a folder name box, so I'm going to give it a folder name. I'll put test, for instance, there.
Alert error. The item could not be renamed. The name test is already used in this folder. Please use a different name. OK push button.
Well, I guess that's what you get when you use the same name in a folder that's already there.
Dropbox frame. Icon view.
I'm just going to call it test 01.
CEFT01. Test 01 folder.
And there it is. Now, if you're coming from Windows, you'll remember that your drives had letters assigned to it. This is not the case in Linux. Instead, you have a slash assigned to it instead. So slash is the main drive, like the C drive in Windows. And your user directory is located in a folder called home. And in that folder are the list of users that are using the computer. So that's how to get to your users. It's the same on a Mac, except the Mac has a users folder. None of the drives are lettered that way either. So you're probably wondering now, how do I access a removable pen drive? Well, I've got one plugged in now. Let me just take it out and put it back in again. Wait for a minute.
Now frame. Icon view.
And here it is. It's appeared straight away. By default, Linux opens your pen drive for you, so that you can browse all the files on that removable drive of yours. And if you want to eject the file, if you want to eject the drive, you go back.
Folder. Now folder.
And you go ahead and eject it.
Open.
Right click.
Open. Copy paste. Copy open send. Compress eject.
And eject. So we just wait for a minute. Sometimes it'll give us the notification that we can eject it. Sometimes it won't, but this thing is being slow. No, it isn't. There we go.
Folder.
It appears to have worked.
Dropbox.
Let me just exit out of there.
Dropbox. Where Dropbox is not responding. Wait push button. Dropbox is not forced with push button.
Let's suppose quit that. Because that does happen if you have an app that's not responding. So now the last thing I'm going to cover is how to install apps.
Jordan at Linux Mint. Till 10:20.
So here we are in our terminal, and let's say this is, in my opinion, the best way to install apps, so that you can see exactly what's going on. But this is one way to actually install software. So you'll have to get used to the command point. You'll have to learn the command line at some point, because there are apps you can only install from the command line. There is a graphical tool that lets you browse software, but I'm not going to cover that because it does depend on the distribution. So I'm going to do a cross-distribution method, particularly if you're using Debian, which Linux Mint's based on. So name a piece of software you'd like to install right now. And we're going to go ahead and install Audacity. Now, you're probably wondering, how do we do that from the command line? Well, here's how you do it. Since we're in an empty space in the terminal right now, we type in sudo,
sudo,
and that tells the computer to execute the command as administrator, because by default you're not logged in as an admin.
Sudo.
And now we need to tell what package manager we want to use. apt is the advanced packaging tool.
Apt.
Now that we've called a function, we want to tell it to do something. So we type in install.
install. Install.
And now it'll ask what you want to install. Of course, it hasn't been opened properly yet, so we're going to type in Audacity.
Audacity.
And press enter.
Sudo password for Jordan.
and it'll ask for your admin password.
Star, star.
Type that in. Type that in,
Star, 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 star.
and press enter. In my opinion, this is the better way to install programs because your default graphical pack, your software center will be different depending on your distro, but the terminal will always be the same. And again, depending on the distro, package managers are the same, but it's recommended you use a Debian-based system like Ubuntu and Linux Mint. So let's press enter. Let's press enter on that.
Reading package lists 0%. Reading package lists. Done. Building dependency tree 0%. 5. Done. Building dependency tree. Reading state information. Done. The following additional packages will be installed. Audacity Data Lib Flat ++6 v5 libit 3 tab 0 libport 0 v5 lib 0 0 -0 lib and hosts 3 v5 libut space 3.0 -0 v5 libuxt 3.0 gtk 3 -0 v5 suggested packages. Last but plugin. The following NEW packages will be installed. Audacity Data Lib Flat ++6 v5 libit 3 tab 0 libport 0 v5 lib 0 0 -0 lib and hosts 3 v5 libut space 3.0 -0 v5 libuxt 3.0 gtk 3 -0 v5 0 to upgrade 9 to newly install 0 to remove and 0 not to upgrade. Need to get 11.9 MB of archives. After this operation, 51.8 MB of additional disk space will be used. Do you want to continue? Y/N.
Okay, so it's going to install a lot of other stuff alongside the package. This is what is known as a package dependency. And you simply type in Y to do so. Now, if you're an advanced computer geek like me, you'll remember that Windows relies on DLLs. These dependencies are very similar. So without these, your program's not going to work. So we're going to go ahead and tap Y, and it's going to go ahead
Y.
and download the required files. So let's watch it for a bit.
0% working. Get :1 http archive.ubuntu.com/ubuntu focal/universe AMD64 Audacity Data All 2.3.3-1 build 1923 KB 0% 1 Audacity Data 13.8 KB/1923 KB 1%. Get :2 http archive.ubuntu.com/ubuntu focal/main AMD64 lib flat ++6 v5 AMD64 1.3.3-1 build 27.8 KB 15% 2 lib flat ++6 v5 4009.
So let's interrupt it.
Oh.
And it's still installing stuff. So our terminal is completely is unavailable to us at the moment because it's installing stuff. To see what's going on, press the plus on the numpad keypad, and it will read the entire. I should have said this in the web browsing section, but if you press plus on the numeric keypad, it will read the entire document.
New line. Progress. 97%. ###.
So that's almost finished now. So we're going to wait. And we're going to wait after wait a while to make sure it's actually properly installed. And then once it's actually installed, we can actually see if the program will appear in our programs list. Which the majority of the time, if you're downloading from the official repositories, it will. And this is the advantage of Linux. Because you're downloading from the official repositories, you're guaranteed to download safe software, except you will have to download external sources. I mean, Google Chrome is one of them. And they'll open as a .deb package if you use executable files on Windows, or PKG files on a Mac, or dragging and dropping an application.
7%. ###.
Ignore all that. It's eSpeak. It's Alright, we're installed. eSpeak reads punctuation regardless of your punctuation settings. And now that we're back on our main terminal window, our software should appear in our list. So
Menu. Chroma Educ.
You'll find it in sound and video because we've just installed Audacity as an example.
Rapid Internet Office other program sound and video audacious. Audacity.
And there it is. We've got Audacity waiting to be used, and we just simply press enter to open it.
Jordan at Linux Mint. Tilde frame. Jordan at Linux.
So let's just wait for a bit.
Not time. Okay. Push. Don't show. Okay. Don't icon. Not ticked. Don't show this again at startup. Okay. Okay. Push.
We've got our Audacity welcome.
Audacity frame. Audacity file edit. Select new transport tracks generated.
And here's our main
Browser
window.
combo box. Default com 2 step default. Start and end of selection of combo editable default combo 2 stereo recording channels combo box.
Okay, that just goes to show that it works.
Jordan at.
And if you've gotten to the end of this video, congratulations! You now know how to use your Linux computer with the Orca screen reader. Again, if you're a sighted person, you can follow along too. So Linux has some amazing software, so I recommend you go try it out. It's a pretty good operating system, and you can test it out in loud mode, so you don't have to install it. I do have to say though, the things I'm not covering though are other commands, because Linux is a really powerful operating system. I'd be all day showing all these. So another thing you can do with apt is update the system with it by typing sudo apt update. Upgrade the system by typing sudo apt upgrade. Well, actually no, update will look for the latest software, and if you type in upgrade, it will install those updates. But don't be afraid to use the command line. It is, in my opinion, compulsory to a Linux experience. You will have to use the command line at some point anyway to install some software, particularly if you want to download sound themes. Other than that, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. So that's how to do things in Linux. The basic tasks on your Linux computer. This is actually a re-upload because the other one I did, because my Mac is, as you know, old. It's got a hard drive in it, and because it's got a hard drive, I still class it as obsolete. But it's still a good Mac regardless. It's not entirely old, it's just got an obsolete hard drive in it. The rest of the hardware is fine. It quit during the recording, so I lost quite a lot of progress. So anyway, that was my video on using Orca. This is Jordan signing off, saying have a good day everyone.
Stop recording.